You know, the crazy thing is that track chair, one of the on the track chair, that one of the little accessories you can get, that black plate on the back,
Yeah.
is a cooler rack.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, you can put like that Yeti, on the back and strap it down. But I always thought, man, that's pretty fouled up. You load it up with cold beers, and I mean, you're a quad, and first of all, you can't open that Yeti, and then next thing, you're just toting that. You're toting that cooler around for all your buddies to just go back there and knock them out.
Could you get a DUI on that track chair?
It'd be tough to load me in the back of a cop car.
All right. Well, we are back with another Seek One podcast. Today is a very, very special one. We have our buddy Clark Mason with us and his best friend Brandon. They've traveled from Birmingham, right?
Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay. And
That's right.
I guess to start this off, I think the best way, and Cheeto's here too. Sorry, Cheeto Marlowe. Y'all have probably seen him in some of our videos, and Drew as well. So I think the best way to start off is sort of give a background of kind of like how all of this came to be. Clark, we just hunted together, and for those people that weren't listening, killed a really nice deer.
Yes, we did.
First Georgia deer of the season for
For our
our
crew.
group.
So you broke the ice for us.
Well, I'm glad I was able to help y'all out.
So sort of giving a background, I'm sure a lot of you, maybe the episode's out or maybe it's not, I don't know, but giving a quick background and then we'll kind of jump into things. Clark, you had a hunting accident almost 2 years ago, right?
October the 16th will be 2 years.
Okay. And so what were your injuries from that fall before we kind of dive into your story too deep?
I have 7 fused vertebrae in my neck and 4 in my back, lower back. And I broke 5 ribs, my sternum, a few teeth, and bit my tongue in half. So that's the injuries I sustained.
When you say fused vertebrae, you mean like you broke that part of your spine?
Neck. Right.
So you broke your neck and your back.
Broke my neck and my back.
And so it's crazy. Not even 2 years ago. That feels like, 2 years in the grand scheme of things is almost nothing. It just seems so recent.
It does, but it also has its times where it feels like I'm in a mobile chair and it feels like it's been forever also, But then when you look back on things, like you said, it hadn't been long at all. But, it's just it's kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but then the way I look at it is, hey, I'm still here,
Yeah.
and so I'm so thankful for that, and
So
it could have been a lot worse.
yeah, no doubt. Well, we kind of backtracking here to the background. We just caught basically wind of your story. We still haven't heard it. Cheeto, you heard it on the way here, right?
Yeah, I heard it on the way here. And basically how it kind of all started was, Clark went into Stretch Zone where my wife works, and he was telling her his story. And when she told me, I was like, this is just crazy. Because all the thoughts came in my head when I heard his just brief of his story. She just told me he fell, and it just was like, I thought about all the times I've been in a lock-on and just like times that I could have fallen, and I was like, that's when I told y'all about it and said I think we should do something fun with this guy.
That whole situation is just still like mind blowing to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
just for the fact that I met this lady and we got to talking about, my accident, and for her saying, hey, my husband and me love to bow hunt and everything. And then, I mean, I just still can't wrap my head around it, and then when we got to talking about Lee, and then just, I don't know, a month later or whatever, I get a call. I still just can't wrap my head around all that. That's just wild.
Yeah.
It's an honor for Lee and I to be able to have you share your story really for the first time to the public with us. Like, it's such a crazy, wild, horrific story, but such an impactful one.
It is.
That we're able to just able to kind of be a part of, getting it out there with you. It's going to change a lot of people's lives. I know that. It's changed ours in the last 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think our hope is that this is going to be very impactful to the people that hear it and the people that see it. And I mean, kind of to what you were saying, just like you meeting Cheeto's wife Beth at Stretch Zone, just like, to me, the only thing that can phrase this whole experience that we've had the last 24 hours is just meant to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
really and
most
truly. Just the odds of all of this kind of happening and coming together, us even meeting, and then, I mean, how hunting is, and deer are deer, and you can't do anything with wild animals, and just how everything just unfolded recently, it was nothing except meant to be.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it.
And Clark, not to mention, I called you on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah,
and we left Wednesday morning.
Today's Thursday, yeah. I mean, it happened fast.
You had to tell me we're going to do a podcast, not to go hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clark had no clue that he was going to go hunting until he got down here.
Yeah.
So
And I sit back a lot, and I really, now that I think about it, I'm so thankful that I came, because I was so close, and just because this is big for me,
Yeah.
like this, to get out and get back into doing what I love to do, and the situation I'm in now, it was really, it was hard for me to really take you up on coming to do this podcast.
Yeah.
And now I'm so thankful I did.
Well, it's kind of funny because we were plotting behind the scenes with your wife Erica, and Cheeto and I were having. Well, that was on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember we were sitting there talking, and we were sitting there and we're like, he's gonna sniff this out. Yeah, just I don't know, just come to Atlanta for just want to hang out.
Yeah, we just want to hang out. Bring your track chair.
Yeah, the track chair thing. I was like, I was asking Cheeto. I was like, what are we gonna do? Ride around some property, or what?
So we were kind of plotting this, and I'm like, guys, he's gonna sniff something out. We've got to throw a bone out here. Some sort of reason that he's gonna buy into of that's why we wanted to meet him in Atlanta. So we threw out the podcast thing as okay, that might make sense of why these guys want to hang out with you kind of thing, is just do a podcast, hear your story or whatever.
And that's how I threw the track chair in, because I was just like, well, yeah, sometimes they have bonfire,
they get aggressive in their
outside.
podcasting.
Sometimes they're outdoors.
So there was a lot kind of behind the scenes, and just how everything sort of unfolded was just really cool to be a small part of and just kind of witness. So it just how everything happened. There's a bigger story here. It's not just coincidence and happenstance that kind of all this happened. Is how I feel about it.
one thing that I didn't, and like you just said, this was so kind of just thrown together last minute. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know really any of your story besides the fact that you fell out of a tree and you broke your back and your neck. We didn't know any of the details of it. And I personally didn't really consider how much of an internal battle you have with getting back into the woods and hunting, because it's something that you loved so much before, and then it's it probably triggers just these memories that you don't really want to relive. And I could see that battle going on in your head yesterday, and it's kind of a it's a scary thing because it could go one way or the other. Like it could bring you to a place that you don't want to be,
Mm-hmm.
or you could win that battle and make it a positive thing, and figure out like how to enjoy that again. And I hope that's the latter is kind of what has happened here. But I do think like it's going to be a daily battle. That way more than than we do. And that's something that we were talking about here outside before the rest of the guys got here. But
Right.
just
Yeah, every day you fight a different battle with
Yeah.
this, type of injury and whatnot. But like that battle in itself of going back and being out in the woods was like the toughest one I could say that, in all honesty, like getting back to doing something that I love and that meant so much to me
yeah,
was like the hardest thing. I was so nervous about overcoming that, and being
Yeah.
able to overcome that battle. And as of yesterday, like going out there and like I told Lee when we were sitting in the blind, it ain't about killing, it's about like just being out there in the woods. There's so much more to hunting to me than just killing a deer.
Mhm.
That's just an extra bonus, is getting to take a deer. But being out in the woods, I mean, it's therapy,
Yeah.
it's therapy in itself, and I could, about an hour in our sit, it just like, I felt so relaxed, I told Lee, I was like, man, it's what I needed,
Mhm.
and I mean, y'all really don't know like what that meant to me and what kind of weight it took off of me,
That's awesome.
I mean, I felt, like my old self was coming back,
Yeah.
and I just really appreciate that.
One thing I know, like being around him, and I'd never been around anybody in a wheelchair, but things that other people don't think about that he is stressed about is like, okay, where we're going to go hunt, can we get my wheelchair in there? Are we going to be able to get? Is something going to go wrong? Can I shoot the crossbow? Can I? All those things are just rolling in his mind, and that's where he decides like, well, no, I'm just not even going to try. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to put myself out there, and like, what if it goes wrong?
And I hate people doing things for me. I
Yeah.
mean, even to this day, I still like, I can't stand it, And I mean, and everybody's like, oh, you just got to get over it. But that's not my mentality,
Yeah.
I mean, like, when Lee's in the blind, like, hey, can you see this moving around? I felt like in my mind, like, that's what I do for my kids when I take them hunting,
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, like I got this other man next to me that's trying to, help me out and, like make sure I'm situated, and I always feel, I don't always now, but like when when I was fresh off when my injury was fresh and everything, I was always like, I got down and, I had a lot of, I guess, like depressed moments, because everybody having to wait on me hand and foot. And I've learned to like overcome that because I'm that type of person, like, where I'm going to sit there and I'll focus on like how to do something, like in my head, like even if it's opening a door, like I'm going to sit there, I'm going to work at it. It might take me 30 minutes or more, but I'm going to get that doorknob, like I'm going to open that door myself because I don't want to have to sit there and wait on somebody to, hey,
Mhm.
will you open this door for me, But that's why that's been my hardest thing about like getting back in the woods, because there's so much you got to do to like, in order to do this sport, I mean, it takes a lot,
Yeah.
and I never have warning and I got to carry different equipment with me now. I mean, y'all guys saw yesterday, like, I had a daggum entourage, of people, bringing my track chair, and then I'm having to drive the wheelchair van and all that. And that's why I've always just said the heck with it, like my hunt days are over.
But I could tell, like, the entourage, your parents and Brandon, like, and us too, like we wanted to be there. You know, I think that like I don't care who you are in life, like we all need help sometimes. And you know, you need help in certain situations, but what you just did, you're going to help a lot of people. So you're dishing it back out, hopefully with this platform, to, you know, tenfold to all these people out here who are going through whatever they're going through. They're facing fears, they're facing battles. Like they just saw you overcome a huge thing, and like you're dishing the help back out exponentially to people that will be encouraged by what you did and facing your fear and kind of like having the courage to put yourself out there and with all these unknowns and these uncertainties and just kind of just tackle it. And you did. And like, I'll never forget that feeling afterwards of us just sitting there, just kind of in the amazement of what had happened in the blind. And so like, I don't want you to think that in any way, shape or form, you know, that, and and actually when I was talking to your wife, I was like, he may tell me no, like, this guy sounds like he was hard in the paint on hunting, like, you know, hanging all these his buddy stands was just like, you know, he may not, you know, want to, you know, accept the invitation to go hunt. I really didn't know. I'm glad you did accept it because it turned into this amazing thing. But, you know, I think what I'm just trying to say is like, we all need help sometimes, and I don't want you to think that because things are different now that like people still don't want to do these things, want to be around you. I know the struggle you have of that.
Oh yeah,
You're kind of, I can tell you're a man's man. You want to just, you know, do it yourself.
and that's
but-
something I've had to overcome and realize. You know, like come to grips with things and say, hey, I'm not able to do it. You know, and I'm so thankful that I have got good friends. You know, and a wonderful family, and they were willing to help me. You know, I mean, I'm so thankful that a lot of people don't have it. You know, but there's always somebody. You know, it don't matter what situation you're in. There's always somebody that will be there to help you. You know, and they might not even be there in person. You know, and people got to realize that, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't give up, you know?
Yeah.
You cannot give up and just keep on going, you know? And, like, this whole trip right here, I was really close. I told my wife after I talked to Cheeto, I was like, this guy wants me to go to Atlanta, meet Sequan, have a podcast. And I said, I just don't know about that, you know? I said, that's not my cup of tea. And then, like, he wants me to bring my track chair and all that. And, like, she couldn't get off of work. She's a school teacher. And I was like, I'm going to have to have my mom and dad pull that trailer. And my buddy's going to drive me up there in the old handy van. And we're going to meet these guys. And I said, I don't know about this, you know. And my little boy, when he heard that we were going to do a podcast, I mean, he was like, man, Sequan, you're going to go meet them? He's like, heck yeah, you got to go, you know? And, like, just for that moment, you know, like him just seeing the fire in him, because he watches y'all, you know? I mean, I don't know how many 9-year-olds watch deer hunting, but, like, he's like, you got to go, man. He said, them dudes are cool. And I was like, he's like, they kill monster deer. And I was like, yeah, they do, you know. I said, they just want to talk to me, though. He's like, well, that's cool, you know.
So if it wasn't for him encouraging you, do you think you might not have come?
There's a very good possibility, because Brandon will tell you, like, I've turned down a lot of people like wanting to like talk to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my story. I don't have a problem telling my story, but like this right here, you know, this is the first time I've ever told my story, like, you know, I guess on air or whatever. But like, I've had people like, hey, look, you need to come over here and speak at this and all, you know, like church or whatnot.
Yeah.
I just hadn't had that. I just hadn't want to be around a big crowd and like speak about it. But I mean, I
Yeah.
just it don't matter. Like it happened, and it is. I mean, it's a good story, and it's the truth,
Yeah.
and
It's still very fresh too. To like uh, I'm sure you're still kind of like grappling with what it means for you and kind of the impact it's had on you. So
it's had
kind of be
a lot of different
yeah.
impacts on me. All from faith to like physical,
Mhm.
just man, relationship with my family.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think we take that, and if you want to start off, I don't know where you want to start off in the story, but if you want to kind of dive into it, we would love to hear kind of how everything happened and what happened. And I mean, I'd probably just start wherever you want, but maybe kind of before, like what kind of hunter you were. And
Yeah.
I knew you were like, pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
that was
Start off there, but then also tell that the whole day leading up to it. So
Okay.
as you tell us about you, and then lead into that.
that's hunting was my passion. I did it. I hunted anything that was in season. Let's just say that. You know what I mean? When deer season went out, turkey season came in, and then like after turkey season, we coyote hunt or hunt hogs. I just loved it. It didn't matter what it was, and it wasn't just like about the kill. It was just about the adventure. And like it was just great. But like I was always at the hunt club or hunting around the house, and I brought my family into it, and like I started taking my kids when they were 3 years old, just dragging them down there, letting them, my little girl used to play school and play with her Barbies in the trailer, like we'd have school during the middle of, like after the morning hunt, and it was great, man. Like she killed her first deer when she was 6, and so I brought my family into it, and they enjoyed it and loved it. But man, I was always in the woods, and it was just it's still tough. Just then, just thinking about like I don't know, like I love going out and hanging sets, and going and scouting and seeing, like where these deer are moving and hanging trail cameras, and like I said before, them daggum cell cameras, they're the devil, man. They get you pumped up, man. Like they make
Making
you
me
block.
think of,
They make you block everything else out
Oh,
at
yeah.
the moment.
you're making me think of the Waterboy's mom, Ricky or Bobby Boucher's
Yeah.
mom. Girls are the devil.
Yeah.
Whatever
Man.
she says.
Man, I'm just telling you, like I loved hanging setting cameras and hanging lock-ons and tree stands from the kids and stuff. Like I'd carry them and set them and put up a ladder stand for them. We'd get up there and man, we'd have some fun, just memorable moments, just sitting there, all 3 of us in a double man ladder stand, just laughing, cutting up. Don't even care if we saw a deer, but just seeing a deer, like it was just a bonus, But like deer hunting, man, it played a major role in my life, and I put it before a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have, but my wife knew how passionate I was about it, and so I started calming down on it a little bit once I had kids, and then once the kids got old enough, that was a better reason for me to be in the woods more, because I was taking them, I was giving her a break, and I was dragging them little ones through the woods and teaching them,
Mm-hmm.
what it was about, and I mean, deer hunting meant a lot. It still means a lot. My little boy, he's still wanting to go, and that's what I'm trying to, I try to set him up with as many buddies and stuff like that to carry him, and, my uncle's got a nice place, South Alabama, and he goes with him a few times a year, and it was just, I always try to think about him, and so he don't lose that passion, because, hey man, ain't nothing better than sitting in the woods. I mean, I guess you could say that, but like that's the best therapy
Mm-hmm.
that any man could have, like, because I think you can overcome a lot of obstacles, I guess you could say, or whatever, like feelings, if you just go out there and just relax and just listen, like, if it really, and just there, and just there's the feeling of being out in the woods is like none other,
Yeah. It's a time to be still,
I mean, just,
which is so hard to do. You and I were talking earlier about just like how important hunting and fishing was to both of us and Lee, especially like at an early age when there's so many just like different things that you get into, and it almost, for us, it probably kept us out of trouble.
yeah.
And I think it's like, I think young kids, especially like your boy at 9 years old, it's becoming more and more rare that kids that age are interested in hunting.
I'm so thankful he is one of those type of kids.
Yeah.
He's not, I mean, like, I'm not knocking any kids, but like, he's not on those video games,
Yeah, not on TikTok
No,
24/7.
no TikToks or anything like that. I mean, we have, it's just woods behind our house, and I mean, that little boy, he's it's a hill, ain't it, Brandon?
Big hill.
It's a big hill.
Huge hill.
But we got some deer down there. They're like daggum mountain goats, but we also have hogs and turkeys. And that little boy, he'll drag he's got a little snow sled, one of those plastic snow sleds, and he'll put 2 50-pound bags of corn on there. And he'll send it down that hill, and that thing will fly down the hill, and he'll go down there and he'll hang him a little camera up and put that, put the corn out and all that. And I mean, it's just, he'll shoot some hogs or something. We live in a pretty nice subdivision, and like once we showed up, here we are, like got a little boy back there popping hogs. And,
Oh yeah.
Trapping raccoons.
yeah, trapping
and
raccoons.
Everything he can do.
And like all the kids, they're all wanting to play video games and TikToks and all that, and he don't want nothing about it. He'd rather be out in the woods. And I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, so the day that it happened was October 16th, and
Friday.
it was on Friday. And Brandon, he's down there close to where we were at, like his place is, and his dad and him, they have their own piece of property, and we have, it's a little club, and I've been in it for 14 years, and it's right about 2,500 acres, but they're not close to one another. Our places we stay are, but anyways, me and Brandon been talking. We work together and everything, and we've been talking about like our opening day. Like we're gonna leave work early. We're gonna head down there, and he's gonna hunt his property. I'm gonna go over there and hunt mine. And we man, there were so many signs that day. Like I told y'all earlier, it was just like one thing after another, like I should have just to tell people, like, look, if you got a lot of signs that day, like, best just like not do what you planned on doing,
Yeah. Don't fight it.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, like from the time I left that morning, I had a trailer load of wood and a four wheeler that I was gonna haul down there, to the club, and like, I don't know, I think I had like trailer trouble or something with my truck, when I was going to work that morning, and I was fighting that issue. I was like, man, like, I need to get that stuff down there, but Brandon ended up hauling it because I had to stay at work later because who I was supposed to meet didn't show up at the correct time, and I'm like, man, I got to get in the woods, like, hey, I'm ready, like I had to back to those cell cams. I had a bachelor group of bucks, like one nice 10 point coming in like clockwork, and I was fixing to go and close the deal, and I was like, that guy finally shows up, and he's like an hour or so late, and Brandon's already left. And as soon as he showed up, I did what I had to do, and man, I hopped in that truck and I put it in the wind. But before that, I never had done that, but like I had forgotten my hunting boots, and I just walked out and left them, and I was like, man, heck, I gotta have some boots, so I had to fly back home, which wasn't too terribly far, but it was out of the way, and there's just those little signs like that, like, all right, man, and I put that truck in the wind, and I was gone, on I-22, like, and I got there, and I pulled up, and Brandon and them, I met him at his house, and it was down the road from my trailer, and I hooked up that trailer, that I was gonna haul down there, and I said, I told him, I was like, man, I don't know, it was late, like I wanted to already be in the woods because those deer been coming up, been showing on camera like super early, I think like 3:30, and I was like, man, I don't want to go in there and bump them, I don't want to take that chance. So I told Brandon, I said, man, I think I'm gonna, like, I might hunt, but I'm not sure. I might ride over to another friend of mine's house down there and watch a football game that evening.
Y'all still had a field to plant, so you said,
Yeah.
I might go hunting. I might plant that field. I might, and that was one thing of
Typical.
Clark's story is, he's scattered. He'll throw out 10 things he might do that day.
You don't really know which one's happening.
Yeah, you just along for the ride. So, like he threw all those things out, and I didn't know. I told him I'm going hunting. Like you can do whatever you're going to do, but I'll see you later. I'm going hunting.
And I told him, I said, I'll come back. I said, I might come over here and we'll eat, cook out or something. I might stay with y'all tonight, because there wasn't nobody at my place, like at on our property, that we don't have many bow hunters, and that's a good thing, and but man, I had a reputation of like Brennan said, you never knew like what I was going to be doing, or like I guess you could say where I'd be in a way, but yeah, so I took off out of there and I started heading over there, and I was like, man, it was just a beautiful day, and I was like, man, I'm going to ride over there and let's see if, I might just go climb that tree real quick. So I drove out there, and I parked, I got out, and I took my boots off and my work boots, and I started changing out and spraying down and whatnot, and I stepped in like there was a little puddle of water, and I stepped like just in there and got my socks soaked. I was like, dang, like
That was it. That was the sign right
the
there.
sign. I'm telling
Nothing
you.
worse than a wet
And
sock.
I was sitting there, and I'll never forget. I sat there and I stood. I was standing outside my truck, and I was looking like the direction where I was going to be walking to. And I just sat there for a second, like, do I really want to go in there and take a chance? I mean, I can hunt in the morning, But these deer have been coming in like, 3:30, around that time, and it right then is pushing 3 o'clock. And I was like, man, just I said, screw it, we're going. And man, I was hoofing it. I was hustling to get back in, get in the woods. And me and my son had hung this lock on the set the week before, and it's pretty wild. He had it was raining, and I'd climbed that tree. And I mean, like anybody that's bow hunted before, or deer hunted, it don't have to be bow hunting, but they've hung stands and not been hooked off or nothing like that. And it was raining. He's sitting in the buggy, and he had taken pictures of me. It was wild. He had taken pictures of me and sent it to his mom and said, look, what do I do if Daddy falls? Like just playing around.
Jeez.
And I mean, it's wild. I mean, I got pictures.
That was like a week before.
Exact week before the Saturday. Well, what Saturday, the week before. So, and he asked me that day. He said, "Can I climb that?" I said, "No." He said, "When can I climb my first lock on?" I said, "Well, I climbed my first one when I was like 14, 15." So I told him, I said, "Well, when you're 14 or 15, I'll let you climb it." And he's like, "Okay." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because they're dangerous." And man, I went over there and I climbed up, and it was in a little white oak, and it was the only tree, that in that area, and they were dropping hard, man. Them acres, they were, man. It was a good spot. It was a great spot, and I was in a perfect tree, man. I thought, and I climbed up, and I got in that lock on, and I was standing up, and I was leaning towards my left, and I was throwing my that hunter safety system harness. I had that. I was throwing the strap around the tree to tie off to it, and the stand pitched, like just kind of it shifted to the right, and my weight was all on my left, and I'm a pretty big old boy, and when it did, I mean, it's happened to me countless times. I mean, anybody that's hunted out of a lock on knows they'll like move just a little bit, but for some reason, man, it just caught me off guard. And my weight being all on that left, I just stepped, like just kind of stepped out, and I grabbed the tree. And at the last minute, and it was too late. And I was thinking, oh crap, I'm fixing to break my legs. But I have my phone. I mean, that split second I thought that. I was like, I'm fixing to break my legs, but I have my phone. And on the way down, I hit a limb, and it hit me in the lower back, and it flipped me forward. And the doctor said when I hit that first limb, because I had bruising and everything right there on my back. So, I mean, I hit it pretty hard, and they said that's probably what broke my back. Like T6 through T10 I had some breaks, and it pitched me forward, and I landed at the base of the tree on the back of my head, and heard it, felt it, like it was just a snap, but it was like it's weird. I mean, like it was like if I hadn't bit my tongue right down the middle and broke my teeth and just broke my neck and knew what I just did, then it wouldn't, it wouldn't have been that calming. But like the feeling of breaking your neck, it was like warm and just tingly, like just all over your body. There wasn't no pain other than what just happened in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I knew like right then I was like, oh man, but I was panicking because when you break your neck, if you know have a spinal cord injury, it affects your lungs and your breathing. And my mouth automatically started filling up with blood. I landed when I hit my landed on the back of my neck. I don't know how I did it, but I was laying flat on my back, you know, by the grace of God. Thank God I wasn't laying on my face, you know, because that wouldn't have been a good outcome. But I was laying on my back, and my mouth automatically filled up with blood, and I started trying to spit, like trying to get it out, and I couldn't. I didn't have enough power to like blow that out, and so I was just kind of like spraying it on my face. So I turned my head a little bit, like try to get the blood out of my mouth, and it felt like I had gravel in my neck because I could feel like just the bones, you know.
Gosh.
And so like, and then you know, lots going through my head at that moment, you know, and I'm panicking, you know, I'm crying, you know, like screaming, you know, like I don't know, like just it was wild. It was man, it was the whole time was wild, but
Did you hit your head pretty hard? Like, did you
yeah, they
get
thought like they
concussion
thought
from it?
yeah, they thought at when I was at the hospital later on, they're like, you know, we need to check. You know, he might have a head injury. You know, my wife's like, no, that's just him. You know, like, no, no. I don't know how I didn't get one though, but it was just, but like, I knew like when I would turn my head and I felt the, you know, just the grinding in my neck. I was like, you can't move your neck. You know, like you got to try to stay stable and all that. You know, so you know, I went back and I finally like I don't know how the blood like quit or whatever, but I finally had enough where I could breathe, you know. But I had it like on my face and stuff, and it was the wild man. It was couple. You know, I told myself, I said, we're gonna lay here, you know, and we'll lay here for a little bit, Clark. You know, we're going in a minute. We're gonna get up and we're gonna go straight to the hospital. You know, because something's wrong with you. I thought it just like knocked the wind out of me in a way. You know, but my whole body's still just tingling. You know, it was just wild, man. And there's no other feeling like it. You know.
When you said that when you fell, you landed on your back, and that was almost a small miracle in itself. If you had fallen face first, do you think that you would have like suffocated from just breathing in
I think that
dirt and stuff, or
it'd been harder for me to breathe, like you know, like laying on my chest,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, because my lungs were so weak, and because so when I hit the ground, like come to find out from the doctor, I had my binoculars, you know, on the chest, with the chest straps, and I like clenched up, like when I hit, I like my binoculars were under my chin, and they broke my sternum, and then they split my chin wide open, and that's what jammed my jaw together made me break my teeth and bite my tongue, and broke my binoculars. You know, broke the eyepieces off of them. That's a pretty hard hit, you know.
Yeah.
And but I broke 5 ribs, and the thing that everybody said should kill me, I had a double saddle embolism blood clot in both lungs. And they said it should have killed me. Like, there's no way that I should have lived. Not just from breaking my neck, but that blood clot alone is like what should have took me out. And that's what was affecting my breathing, you know. But jumping back, like to where after that, like I laid there for a little bit, and it took me I was just tripping out, you know, crying and everything. I kept telling myself out loud, I was like, you really did it this time, Clark, you know, you really did it, because nobody, you know, I knew the situation because of what I had told Brandon when I left, you know.
you knew that nobody knew exactly where you were.
Yeah, I knew, like, nobody knew where I was, and nobody was like, I wasn't like
Nobody was expecting you.
right.
Yeah, and a lot of clubs, the way the clubs we've been in, you have a sign out board or a pin out board, or like you put something up and that tells everybody else in the club, where you're going to be, and they have one, but nobody else bow hunts in his club, so like it's not like, hey, I signed out for this spot and that's where he's going to,
Yeah.
he was just going hunting, and our land's separate, so, and like I said, when he didn't come back that night, it was kind of like, well, he
Just
found
nothing
something
out
else
of
to
the
do.
normal.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
nothing out of the ordinary. So
Well, I mean, we have a few bow hunters, but we're all so like close that like I knew like, all right, well, he's not going to be down there, like he's at the house and all that stuff, and so I know like who's going to be there. There's like just like 3 of us, and that's why I was like, and I was pushed for time. I knew nobody was down there, on my property, so I just went out there. No need sign in. I mean, it wouldn't have done no good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but I advise people to do it. You know what I mean? Like just for safekeeping.
Yeah.
And
just letting somebody know where you are, like even like I said, that it's all part of the story now, but him not telling me, hey, I'm going hunting over here, I'll be at this spot, and then I would have known, like, okay, man, something's up,
Well, I'm guilty of it all the time. That unless I've got a camera guy with me, half the time if I'm hunting by myself, nobody knows where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Maybe I've texted Drew or somebody and been like, yeah, I might
I'd
go.
find you.
Yeah. I mean, where I'm, my spots. But most of the time, especially like when I'm on a road trip or something, we're in Ohio, like nobody knows where I'm at.
Yeah.
I was just hunting Kansas, and I stayed when the camera guy left. I was there 4 days by myself. Nobody knew where I was.
Yeah.
Not a person.
Yeah.
I was by myself. And I think that's a big takeaway is like, most people don't want to do it. My parents are always like, oh, well, let me know when you get there, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
And I was always like, that's stupid. I'm never letting you know, and they'd always get mad at me or whatever. But I always viewed it as just a pain to, let someone know where you're at or whatever. But hearing that now, that's the first takeaway for me is like, share your location on your phone. Like phones are pretty advanced these days. Share your location with somebody where someone can see where you're at, even if
At
you're
all
not,
times,
yeah,
too, like
actively saying I'm over here.
Yeah.
Like, people need to know where you're at in case something happens. So
I was laying there, and I told myself, we're gonna lay here for a minute, and then we're gonna get up and go to the hospital. And so, like, I laid there, and man, I was tripping out. And finally, I told myself, you got to calm down and start breathing, So I calmed myself down, and then the next thing is I tried to get up, and it felt like I had a grown man like sitting on my chest and on my limbs, and I was just
that other, yeah.
all right.
Is that good?
That's good.
Cool.
Yeah, I felt like I had somebody just sitting on top of me, and like I couldn't do anything. I didn't want to move my head and look and see like where my legs, my arms, because I couldn't feel nothing. And I laid there, and man, I was just like, oh man, all right, well, this feeling's gonna come back. Like we're just gonna lay here for a little bit longer. And I started hollering out, and not like hollering for help, because where our land is, where I was at, man, if somebody did answer me, it'd have to be a poacher, and he probably wouldn't want to get caught being on the property, and he'd probably be like, all right, let's just get out of here if he heard somebody holler for help. But so I wasn't doing that. I was hollering at Siri. I mean, I called that lady, like I'm telling you, if I had a gun, I'd probably kill her, if I was able to use my hand, but like I called her name, I said that so many times. Hey, Siri, call 911. For the love of God, Siri, call it, And as the day went on, you know, I fell. I think it was like 3:30, something like that, maybe a little after. But anyways, I was when it started getting dark, man. That's when it started like saying, "All right, this is getting real." Like I'm fixing to, most likely, I'm fixing to spend all night, you know, out here, and it started getting dark, dark, and then on our property we have a lot of coyotes. We have a major problem with them. And so everybody that's hunted long enough knows, like, when you're coming out of the woods and you start hearing them, you know, cutting up and stuff, man, it'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care how big a person you are, like, it just the eerie sound. And then, so when it started getting dark, I start hearing they start chiming off, you know? I'm like, man, I've killed so many of their buddies, and I'm like I'm sitting here, you know, covered in blood, can't move. I'm a freaking buffet, you know, like they're fixing to come over here, but I'm gonna bite some of them if they get close. And I was sitting there, so like it started getting, you know, it's dark at that time, and man, they were cutting up, and I was just, so the only thing I could, and everybody knows, man, coyotes, like they'll clean a deer out, you know, they'll just tear one up in a matter of minutes, pretty much. And I was just like, man, all right, so I got to do something. And I was scared, you know, it's just not about the dogs or nothing, but I was scared about the whole situation. Because, I mean, being out in the woods, man, like at night by yourself, like just, I mean, it's just got a different feeling, you know, like it takes a different take on you, you know, in a way. Like it's pretty. I mean, I'm not scared of the dark by no means, but like that time I was pretty scared of the dark, you know, that at that moment. But like I sat there and man, I started crying out to God, you know, and asking Him like I laid everything that I've ever done, like stuff I've never told people, you know, everything everything that I could think of, and asked for forgiveness, you know. And I grew up in church, you know, and then as I got older, I just strayed away, and it was it was wild, man. Like, cause I felt this feeling like none other, you know, like hey, I got you, you know, and I just talked to God, like literally, like I mean, I talked out loud like all night long, you know, and like I told him, I said, Lord, if there's any way, all I want to do is see my wife and kids just one more time. That's all I want, you know. I was fine if I died at the hospital or something, or died in an ambulance or something. At that moment, like I wanted to see my wife and kids like just one more time, you know, and tell them I love them, and I'm gone, you know, that's fine. But man, I laid it out there. I mean, I just begged him, cried, and just asked him for forgiveness, you know. And I felt like this just calm, like, all right, you'll be fine, you know. And like the night, like moved fast, you know. It was like just I stayed up all night long, and it was just like it's wild. Like it seemed like it didn't last for you know, it didn't last long. And I mean, that was God, you know, and you know, because like that's a terrifying moment, and I'm out there just pouring my heart out to Him, you know, and just like, just I was asking Him, like, everybody that knows me knows, like I wasn't there on Sunday mornings beating down the church, you know, the church door. Everybody knows that I wasn't that type of person. I believed in God, you know, I knew there is a God, but I didn't live my life like I should, you know. I put other things first, and I was just, it's hard to describe, like, but like at that moment, man, like I just felt like this, you know, like this comforting in a way, like just, hey, look, everything will work out, you know. And so the next morning, when the sun started coming up, yeah, I couldn't feel like any temperature or anything, but when the sun came up, I'll never forget like that feeling of the like the sun hitting my face, and I was like, oh man, you know, like I made it, you know. So now I can close my eyes, you know, and we'll take a little break and we'll sleep, Clark. So when I closed my eyes, man, I slept all day. I woke up and it was like probably, I don't know, man, it was about to start getting dark again. And I started panicking. I was like, man, this is terrible. Because I knew, I was like, at this moment, all right, that's Saturday. I was like, all right, I was supposed to be Saturday at lunch. I was told my wife, I said, I'm going to bow hunt. I'm going to hunt Friday. After work, I'm going to hunt Saturday morning. And then I'm going to turn around. My little girl plays travel ball. And they'll play like, you know, into the night. So I told her, I said, all right, I'll meet y'all at the park at, I told her I'd be there sometime after lunch. Well, it's opening weekend, you know, and she knew, like, all right, well, there's a good possibility he'll hunt, you know, Saturday evening and then just show up over here afterwards. Well, she had checked my phone on my whatchamacallit, my
Find my location,
yeah,
kind of thing.
and it showed that I was in the woods. And so later on, like when it started getting dark, she checked it again and realized that it hadn't moved. And she knew, like, all right, something ain't right, you know?
So, kind of up to this point, no alarms had gone off to anybody as of yet.
No.
That was kind of the first, like, hey, something's not right.
Right. Saturday at 5-ish, you know, probably. And so, like, they were like, you know, but there again, that's my reputation, you know, like, you never knew, you know, about me.
And Brandon, for you, like, no alarm, no.
Well, yeah, I'd had alarms because, like I said, we'd been pumped about like opening day. You know, we were pumped up. We'd been having all these pictures. Well, I go and Friday evening, I shot a doe on one of our fields. You know, and I texted him. You know, like just shot one.
Sure.
Nothing. No response. You know, then we get it back and you know I sent him another text later with a picture. Nothing. You know, and I was like, well, that's, you know,
Like he's ghosting you.
yeah. I was like, what's the deal with that? You know. Well, then like I said, he didn't come to the house that night. Well, then Saturday morning, my dad shot a doe with his bow. Send him pictures again, you know, nothing. You know, and it was.
And y'all'd normally be chiming back and
Oh
forth.
yeah, he'd
just
at
like,
least hit me a text back, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking like, well, that's kind of weird, you know. But it wasn't that unusual for him, so it's like, well, he just found something else to do, you know. Like, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But something just kept eating at me. Like, man, it's just strange, you know. It doesn't feel right. Something feels weird, you know. So then a lot of times we'll hunt Saturday morning and go home, you know, if we hunt Friday afternoon because it's not that far away. And so we hunted, you know, and left at lunch, and me and my dad were, you know, headed back home. And I called my wife on the way home, and I told her, you know, like, man, I hadn't heard from Clark all weekend, you know, and she was like, well, something might be wrong, because that's a woman's instinct, you know. It's like, something's wrong, and I was like, he's fine, you know. Well, then I get home, and it's just still eating at me, you know, and my wife's like, why don't you just see if anybody else has talked to him, you know. So I texted his mom, and I was like, hey, you talked to Clark, you know, any this weekend? And she said, well, no, Erica just said that, you know, she hadn't been able to get a hold of him, and his phone hadn't moved all day, you know, because she was looking at it.
That's probably about the same time as.
It was wild. Like, when I think my mother said, like, it was just like a couple of minutes that she hung up with my wife that Brandon called. And
But when they said that, you know, like his phone hadn't moved all day, like my heart sank because I was like, something, you know, something's up.
Yeah.
That he hadn't answered and he hadn't moved, you know. So then, you know, we start kind of alerting everybody that's still up there at the hunting club, like, hey, have you seen him? Nobody's seen him. Nobody's heard from him. So then everybody realizes, like, all right, something's up. So we jump in the truck and we head back up there, you know, and that kind of like started the search, you know, to figure out what was going on.
And that was like record time. And like Brandon went, like he drove
yeah.
like 100 miles. He had to drive 100 miles, and he was there like in no time.
Yeah.
You know, like it was pretty wild about that. I mean,
And so that's Saturday at like what time?
Uh,
7.
Yeah,
7 o'clock in the
Yeah.
evening.
So it's been 25, 26 hours since you've been since the
he
fall.
fell.
Since I fell, and
Are you like feeling thirsty at this point at all?
oh
Like
man, I was feeling all kinds of things. But I tell you, one really crazy, like the most crappiest feeling in the world is hearing that phone just sit there and vibrate
man.
and vibrate and vibrate and vibrate, and it's right there in your pocket.
and you have no movement in your arms at
No
all.
movement. So like when it got dark Saturday, we had a drop in the temperature, and it went to, I think it was like 34.
Yeah, upper 30s that second night,
And
Saturday
so
night.
I went from that warm, fuzzy feeling to pure hell. I mean, absolute, just my nerves, my whole body. It was like I was on fire and getting stabbed with needles. Like, it was like the worst pain ever. And I started just, man, like that was it, I was screaming, and I was screaming out to God to just go ahead and take me. Like, I'm ready to go. I was like, just watch over my wife and kids. But please, God, I'm ready to go. Like, I wanted to die. Like, I was wanting to go because I was in so much pain. Like, because the coldness, like, just automatically just messes with your nerves, and that, man, that was just thinking back on that for what I went through on at that few moments, it was just terrible, like absolutely terrible. So I yelled like that for like just a couple hours on and off, man. And finally I said, the heck with it, I'm going to roll over, now I don't know what I'm thinking at this point, but I'm tired of laying there. I'm like, we're getting out of here, Clark, And I had this mindset, like, if I roll over and get on my stomach, then I'll be able to crawl out of here. Don't know why I thought that, but I did. And so I started moving my head a little bit, and I moved my head, and my hand was like, my left hand was like, the way it was laying, and it was right there by my cheek that I hadn't even seen it, the whole time. And I reached down and I leaned over and I put my index finger in my mouth and I bit down on it. I bit the fire out of it. And I couldn't feel nothing. And I was like, man. It was just like, it was just like, just this feeling like, man, this is not good at all. So that's when, and then I'm just crying out, like, just in pain. I just realized, like, man, I can't feel, like this. I'm sitting here, like, just my freaking fingers in my mouth, and I can't feel it on my hand, and so I said, screw it, I'm going to try to, like, this messed up, but, like, I was going to just try to, like, end it for myself, and the only way I could think about it is, like, move my head around a bunch, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. There were some sawbriars right there, like some big old, those big, thick briars that were right there by where I was laying, and I was biting them, thinking I could like bite it and like pull myself over, to get on my stomach. And there again, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was trying my best to get out of there. And then I realized my pull-up rope with my bow was like right there on my chest. And I was just like, for some reason, they said like I had worked my bow up close to me from biting that pull-up rope. I would pull it a little bit, and I get another bite and pull it a little bit. But there, I was like just trying to do whatever I could to get some kind of like something come over there, like get close to me. I guess I don't know, but in the back of my mind, I was wanting like the lights to be turned off, for me moving my head around so much. And I cried out, and man, it was at this time it was. I think I was found at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, man, I cried out like, and it was wild, man. It was like freaking wild. I cried out to God. I said, if you want me to live, you better send me an angel. If you want me to live, you got to send me an angel. Because I knew, like, there was no way I was going to make it through that night. And the only reason I knew that was because what was going through my mind is, all right, nobody's going to realize now probably that my wife's probably going to be mad at me thinking I'm hunting or whatever. She's just going to be, all right, this is
Typical Clark
Yeah,
is what everybody. That was the saying that that's just typical Clark. You didn't hear from him, he didn't answer.
And then like I was thinking like Sunday's gonna be the day when everybody's gonna be like, all right, something ain't right. And I couldn't do another day. But when I cried out to God and I asked him, I said, if you want me to live, you better send me an angel. And I promise you, it was within minutes. Like it was. I've always told you that, it's been within minutes. I hear another friend of mine say, here's this truck. And my truck was like 300 yards away, but, everybody knows, been in the woods, at night, sound travels, and he was yelling at somebody else. And so I started yelling, which I thought I was yelling, but you don't yell the same like with spinal cord. It's weird, but like, or not all spinal cord, but with the breathing problems that I had at the time, I couldn't yell. But like, he was walking towards me anyways, and he said he kept hearing something that just sounded like off. So he was walking, kept coming and kept coming. And then when he got closer, he could hear what I was saying. So he like took off running, and there was like a blowdown tree right there close by. And he come, and when he got, I had my head, I turned my head a little bit, and I'll never forget, like, man, he just like hit that tree and just collapsed on it. He was shining that light on me, and he just like broke down, didn't even come close, get close to me. And, I mean, he knew I was alive, I told him, I said, man, I'm so thankful to see you. I said, but look, we can cry about this later. Get me the hell out of here. Like just, we got to go. And, man, finally he come over there to me, and I was like, please don't leave me, He's like, I got to go call, like, the fire department. And, so I didn't want to be left, And I told him, I said, my breathing was really bad, like really, really faint. And I thought it was the binocular strap. I thought it was across my neck. And then I had my rangefinder has a little lanyard on it. It goes around my neck. I put it in my harness. And I thought, like, all right, that's what's choking me. I said, man, you're going to have to cut this lanyard off of me. It's like cutting across my neck. And he's like, man, there's nothing touching your neck, It's just the way I was breathing, but he still, like, he got that strap off of me, and I'll never forget, like, just, man, I was terrified at that moment. I was more scared once I had people around. I mean, that sounds weird, you know, because like all reality, I was just sitting there like, man, you know, this is seeing other people's emotions
Yeah.
was just, man, it was just like,
Almost made it worse.
oh yeah, like, and then when more people started piling in, like he's like, man, I gotta go call because he didn't have service right there, and
Because my dad and your dad got there not long after Jared,
yeah, right after that, and
before I got there.
right, and I remember his dad, man, he come running up and like, and I'm Jared's gone and he's calling the ambulance and everything, and by this time, and when there was a pile of people, dude, like just they were looking all over for me because they didn't know like is that where that stand location was, and so when Brandon's dad got there, man, I'll never forget. He come in there and he like slid like he was, you know, like he was dancing across the stage. You know, he like slid in. He's like right there. He's like, man, you're fine and all that. And he's like, I'll never forget his look on his face. And this man is one of the hardest men. Like I'm talking about, like the most manliest man. Like just
No emotion.
no emotion whatsoever. And just seeing his face, you know, scared the hell out of me, you know. Like he was trying to like console me, you know, like, hey man, you're fine, you know. But I asked, I don't know if it was him or my dad. My dad finally shows up, and my dad's more like, oh man, you're fine, you're fine. You know, we're gonna get you out of here and you'll be fine and everything. And I was like, man, no, I broke my neck. You know, I said, I'm paralyzed, you know. And he's like, no, you're fine. I was like, no, man, I'm being serious. And I mean, he was just trying to help me and then help himself, probably like calm with emotion. But I had to pee. And, man, it was the wildest thing, dude. I mean, like this, I don't know if I should tell this part, but
Be as real as you want to be. I mean, this
dude,
is
like I had to pee. Like, all right, so the night like it was getting cold or whatever, you know, that night, and I was thinking, I was like, man, like I got to pee, and like, but if I pee, man, it's gonna feel good, you know,
mm-hmm.
in two different ways. It's gonna be warm, you know, and it's gonna be, you know, relieving, and but I'm gonna hold it, you know. I was thinking in my mind, like, I'll hold it. Well, I had this like just finally like it was not long before I was found. I was like, man, I'm just pee. Screw it, you know. So I thought like I was peeing, you know. And I'll never forget, like, man, my dad, like, he come when he got there, you know, like Brandon's dad, like, he had to step off, like, because man, I looked bad, like I was busted up, you know, my legs and everything, like, probably turned different directions, whatnot. I don't know, but I told my dad, I was like, man, hey, look, you know, there, yeah, I was thinking of appearances, you know. I was like, hey, look, man, I think I said, check, man, down. I said, check me. I just peed all in my pants, you know, like. And my dad like felt down there. He's like, no, you're good, you're good. I was like, no, man, I just peed, you know.
So of all the stuff going on, you're
And-
worried about peeing your pants.
Yeah. So, but the wild thing, well, I mean, like I didn't want to let the ambulance people come up and be like, man, this boy just peed all in his pants. And so like the second time he checked, and he's like, no, man, you fine, you didn't pee. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like this is terrible, you know, like this is absolutely terrible. And so then after that, like, man, they come in there and
It got hectic
it got,
because there was volunteer firemen, you know, from
I mean,
the
shout
area.
out to those people, but
Yeah.
I mean, let's all be serious. If you get hurt, brother, you know, you want to get hurt in a major city. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
You
I don't
know,
think-
like, I mean,
These guys hadn't dealt with a lot of like neck injuries. You know, they were doing their best, but they they weren't sure what to do. You know, we're in the middle of the woods. We got a backboard and a neck brace and
a backboard from the 50s.
Yeah.
You know, it's like an just an oak plank.
yeah,
You know, you got a neck brace that was made like, you know, a long time ago, and it was fit for a 5-year-old, you know, and I was like, man, this is not good, you know.
So nobody's moved you up to that point when the firefighters got
No,
there.
no.
and Clark said he was busted up, but he wasn't. That was the weirdest thing when I walked up, is he's laying on his back right beside the tree, and I mean he's laying there and looks totally normal. I mean his legs are straight, his one arm's beside him, that one arm was like on his chest, but you walk up and look, and he looked fine, and he was talking fine, you know, joking, laughing, like
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to do, like when my dad got there, I was like, before everybody comes, I said, let me talk to my wife, and just hearing the sound of her voice, you know. And she said, I said, I messed up, babe, you know. Like she's like, no, you're fine, you know, you're fine. Which she knew that somebody already told her, you know, but like she said, I know you'll get through this. I said, I don't know. I said, I really don't know, like, if I'm going to pull through this one. And it was wild, man. Like, just hearing her voice, you know, with all that other stuff going on, man, I can't really explain it. It was so comforting, you know. But, because she had told her, whoever, I think it was her dad or something, she told him, because he was down there, and she said, look, when they find him, if he's dead, you know, don't beat around the bush. You just tell me, you know, like, because I'm ready for it, you know, like, just, like, I don't want everybody, like, just hit me straight with it, you know, because she knew, like, I was the type of guy, man, like, I was a man's man, like, I didn't let nothing hurt me, you know, like, if I got hurt, I was going to deal with it and walk on out or handle it myself, you know. And so she knew, like, all right, there has to be something really wrong, you know, like, if I haven't moved. And I just, man, to this day, man, I hate it for, like, the feeling that she had to go through at that time, you know, like, because she left the park, and she left my little girl and my little boy with my mother-in-law, and because she had that eerie feeling, you know. She drove, I think they were like 100 miles from home. She drove back to the house, you know, by herself, you know, just thinking like, hey, look, I'm fixing to find out, like, my husband's dead, you know. Because she knew, like, Brandon and all them were going to look, you know. So she's like, hey, she didn't want the kids around or anything like that. Because when they got there to where I was, they thought like I had a wreck, you know, because the way it wasn't like the way that it had pinged, like on my little, you know, find me out. It was the big circle, you know. It wasn't like a exact tree or something
Yeah,
like
just
that.
that general area.
A general area, and so she thought, like, all right, you know, like people thought that I probably wrecked or something like that, and I was off the road. So people were looking all around this block of woods, you know, and it's a big block, you know, and so, anyways, it was.
How long did it take people to find you once they kind of had that general location? Was it pretty quick?
not long, less than an hour from like, yeah, because it took me about an hour to get back, you know, back up there from my house, and from the time, you know, it started, before I got to Clark, you know, I got a call, hey, they found his truck. They found it, but when they said, hey, they found his truck, then we knew he was hunting. And honestly, I thought, well, he's probably dead, because if he fell, why didn't he call? You know, like I never would have thought like, oh, he's alive, but he can't get his phone out of his pocket. You know.
Yeah.
It's that one limb, man. That one limb.
Yeah.
You all, I mean, like I was telling Lee yesterday, and Cheeto, I was like, man, you know, like, it'll eat at you as long as you let it. Like, what ifs, you know, or like the only thing I had to do, you know, or I mean, because there's so many, like, everybody's having them lock-ons move. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you've hunted long enough, you've had a stand, like, shift underneath you, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to happen, you know. And just the way I look at it was, man, it was my time, you know. You know, I don't know if it was the fact that, like, he wanted to get my attention.
That's what I've been thinking about the last 24 hours. Is like this
Mm-hmm.
question right here of, was it God's plan? Like,
Most
Is-
definitely.
Yeah.
The longer that I sit back and I think about it, that's all it was.
mm-hmm.
Because I'm telling you, anybody that knows me, like, I wasn't living for it. You know, I mean, you know, I like I said, I believed in him. You know, I grew up in church and everything, but I was not living that life. I was putting a lot of things before it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
before him, and man, it was just.
One thing that struck me about, I felt guilty because, not that I knew where he was at, but I felt guilty for a while. Like, I should have looked earlier. I should have gone with my gut and, like, I felt terrible that he laid out there so long because, well, maybe I could have found him Friday night, and me and Clark worked for his uncle, and, and he got hurt Saturday and then Sunday, and then I had to go back to work Monday, and I was like in shock, still because all this had happened, and I was talking to his uncle, and, I was like, man, I just feel like, I feel terrible that I left him out there. And he said, well, maybe he needed to lay there 30 hours to get that, because like you said, he cried out, give me, if I'm
Send an
supposed to
angel.
live, give me a sign.
Yeah.
And he said maybe that was the exact right amount of time that he was supposed to be out
Hit
there.
that point.
Yeah. Maybe it took that long for him to break and say, like, I need you right now, so maybe that's what was meant to happen. That was the part of the plan, that he was supposed to lay out there and hit that breaking point where he turned from, the first night, I'll give anything to live, and then the second night he's ready to die, like, I'm done. I mean, that's always stuck with me, that, like, maybe that was supposed to happen, because I did feel guilty for a while that I didn't help him sooner. That ate at me for a while.
And I like to kind of think that, your story is still being told. All of ours are still being told, but your story in particular is still being told. And I kind of look at, like, what just happened, with how we all kind of came together, you coming to Atlanta, like, that I hope that, us meeting has just helped some of your story come a little more full circle, that, Drew and Kendall and I, like, we have this platform. We always want to be the best stewards we can of that platform, and to broadcast your story and have people hear it, like, I know it's going to change people's lives.
It don't have to be an accident, that you have, that it could be, in my mind, like, it could be alcohol, drugs, or anything that's, like, really eating at you, like, man, trust me, man, it's coming from me, like, you might just need to cry out,
Yeah.
and lay it all out on the table.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not what I used to be by no means. But I'm so thankful that I'm here and able to see my wife and kids every day, and be around them and see my friends. And I mean, like, look who I got to meet and come hang out with. I mean, this is incredible,
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, like, if you cry out to him, he will answer in some form or way, he will. But you really got to believe,
Mm-hmm.
and have that faith. And he's the only one that can make a difference in your life.
Yeah, and you really pushed on. Y'all both kind of talked a lot about, God's timing, and I think that's a huge thing for people to kind of understand is sometimes we pray for things and we feel like it's forever. So I'm sure laying there 30 hours felt like 30 days, just laying there crying out to God like help me or send me like or take me home, and I think it's important for people to know that our timing is not God's timing, and we just have to be consistent in prayer and know that God is faithful through every situation. Even though, something bad happened out of it, but right now you're telling your story to a, a big platform where people are going to hear this story, and not only is it going to change their perspective of hunting, it's going to change their perspective of their family. It's going to, change their perspective of their priorities. And I mean, just it's so many different levels of, change that it could have an effect on somebody.
Yeah, I agree. And Clark, to your point earlier, like life sucks sometimes, and that's just the way it is. And there's always going to be roadblocks, hiccups, speed bumps, whatever you want to call them. Yours was an accident, but it could be alcohol, it could be relationship issues, it could be whatever that thing is that is what people are struggling with. They can get through it. If you can be laying in the woods with a broken neck, broken back, to the point where you're just saying the only thing you want left, the only thing you want before you basically would be content to just, essentially die, is to just see your wife and kids one more time. Like, you hit that point. And now you look at not even 2 years later, and I've witnessed you stand up twice today, or twice while you've been here. You've killed it. You killed a deer. Like, you got back to doing what you love to do, something you never thought you'd be able to do again. And it's like, if you can be in that rock bottom of just lowest of low, cannot possibly be any lower, and to see where you've come in 2 years and where you're going, this is still just the beginning for you, I believe. I believe that anybody who's going through whatever their personal thing is that they're struggling with, that they can absolutely get through it. If they've seen what you can do, 100%, there is a way for them to bulldoze and keep going and find a way to get through whatever it is that they're struggling with. So that to me is like such an encouragement, just to hear your story and know kind of the place that you were at and what happened, and see where you are now and where you're going, is just like extremely encouraging.
Yeah.
I also think that outside of that all of us as hunters are guilty of not being as safe as we possibly can be when we're hanging tree stands. I know I've been guilty of it. I know, Drew, you've been guilty of it. All of us have. I mean, and so I don't think people need to take the mentality of, well, it won't happen to me, because it can very, very easily. I mean, it's one moment, it's one quick instance that can change your life. And, if it takes a little more time, if it's a little more tedious, if it's a little more, pain in the butt, like, do the right procedures that you need to go through to make sure that you're safe climbing a tree, because it's not only you that you're affecting.
You're affecting everybody around you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with heights ever since I got out of school. I mean, I was in the sign business, and I mean, we worked all different heights, from hundreds of feet to 10 feet. It didn't matter. So, like, I had that mentality of, it's not going to happen to me, I mean, because I've done it so many times. But, man, it was meant to be, And then one positive, there's been some positive like outcomes of all this, but one of the main ones I can think of, and I think of every day, is how much closer I am to my family. I mean, like, I know that physically I have, like, I can't leave by myself, or anything like that, but just emotionally and like
Spiritually.
yeah, like just it's hard to say. Like I'm so thankful that I have them, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like I look back and see what I took for granted all those years, you know, because yeah, I did stuff with the family, you know, I was there, but I really wasn't, you know, and I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity, you know,
Yeah.
and that's one, like I said, one major positive thing that God has shown me in this whole situation.
Yeah. Oh, I've had one question the whole time I meant to ask you yesterday, but I've heard Brandon's story, I've heard your parents' story, and just their thoughts through when it happened to now, and so I've heard a lot of different stories, but you when everybody was there and they took you out of the woods, they carried you to the field, and you were airlifted out of that field. My question is like, what was your thoughts like in that helicopter, like on the way, to the hospital? Like, what were you thinking in that moment?
Well, I was telling them at that moment, I was like, well, I got $300 something pair of pants on and all my boots and all that. And, you know, I probably got like $1,000 worth of stuff on, or
Yeah.
way over $1,000 because I have binoculars and all that. And I was thinking, I told those airmen, like, man, look, just unbuckle that harness.
Don't cut it
Don't
I
off.
said,
cut
don't
it.
cut it off, you know. And, man, it's messed up. But he's like, look, you don't worry about that. And so they zip me open, man. I'm in my birthday suit and it's freezing, which I couldn't feel the temperature, but the coldness turned into like just pain, like I said, like just the needles and everything. And I like to, if those air medics are listening, I appreciate what they did, but I kind of like to have my stuff back because they're walking around with some nice Leopold stuff and you know, my release and everything. So thanks for all your help, but I sure would
But I'd like
appreciate
that stuff back.
Yeah. No lie, like I was when I first got to the hospital, like, you know, I, right after I got out of surgery was 13 and a half hours, and they kept me for a whole day because they told my wife and everything, they're like, look, he's not going to make it, you know. Like if we go and put him under right now, the way those blood clots are in my lungs, they had to do something. I don't know, but they kept me, I think it was like 24 hours or something like that before they went
I think that's a whole another part of the story besides just the neck injury is like, you know,
Man.
we got him out, they got him to the ambulance, and like I said, he was in good spirits, he was joking, laughing, and we knew he was, you know, probably paralyzed or hurt. But then when they got to the hospital and figured out, hey, he's got these blood clots in his lungs, there was another turning point that like, hey, there's a really good chance he's not going to live through these
well, like
blood
when
clots.
the air medics got there, they kicked the regular medics out, like, get out of here, you know. And they were working on me, and I'll never forget this lady. Man, I'm talking about, like, seeing their reaction, like, hey, look, this guy's messed up, you know, like, because of the way they looked at my vitals and everything. And she pulled out a drill, like, I'm pretty sure it was like a daggum DeWalt, you know. And she drilled in my shoulder, and it was like, oh my gosh, man, I was screaming to the top of my lungs. And like Brandon, I think, and then like his wife and all that, like everybody that was there was like right around the ambulance. And I was begging her to stop because I couldn't move. And then she went, and what they were doing, they were putting in these lines because they knew that they said I was probably on code, you know, like just
Mm-hmm.
anytime. And those lines were like a direct, where they could like inject medicine to me, like get it to me directly, like really quick. And then they went in my tibia, and I remember hearing that drill or whatever that she was using, and not feeling any pain. Oh man, dude, this is messed up. You know,
So you could feel the shoulder, or you just
yeah, like
Yeah.
up on my collarbone, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. But I wanted something to drink. You know, that's all I wanted. Man, I was so thirsty, and I kept asking them. I was like, man, somebody just give me a bottle of water, you know, or something. I cannot have it. So when they took me, and finally got to the hospital, and I advise everybody out there, get you a pilot that likes to fly fast, because this dude, he was on granny mode. This
Taking his
dude,
time.
I'm telling you, he was racking up his miles, you know. That was the most expensive taxi ride I've ever had, you know. You know.
So you underwent 13 hours of surgery awake. Is what they could, because you said they couldn't put you under.
No. They put me under, but they
They
did
had to
some-
delay the
they had to delay the surgery.
because
Okay.
of the blood clots, because they really thought like he's not going to live.
Like they told
through
my
these
wife,
blood
they brought
clots.
this chaplain in. When he come in, like I was still all, you know, I was talking, you know, everything, and I was like, look, this chaplain come in and talk to me, and I said, hey buddy, look, before you get to talking, will you give me something to drink? And he come in there. I'll never forget this man. He was so nice, and he had this big cup of ice chips. You know, I was like, man, because I had all that dry blood and everything in my mouth. And he pulls out one ice chip. And now I'm thinking about it, he was barehanded, and he put it in my mouth. You know, and that was the best feeling, like just having that. Man. I said, all right, buddy, give me another one. I said, you just dump them in there, you know. And he's like, that's the only one I can give you. I said, well, why did you bring a whole cup full? You know, like, come on, man. You know, and I was mad. Like, I was like,
You said that to him?
yeah, I was like, man, why did you bring a whole cup?
You-
And so then I turned around and I was like, I was just sitting there, like laying there. Because, like Brandon tell you, I was talking like it was fine. And I knew, like, all right, I'm at the hospital, I'm safe. I was thinking that. But I said, hey, can I use your phone? The chaplain, he's like, looking around, he's like, yeah, you know. He said, who you going to call? So I'm going to call my wife. Will you please call her? Well, he called her, and it's messed up thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it, but like I gave him her number, and when she answered, he said, "Is this Erica?" You know, and she's like, "Yes." He's like, "Well, this is Chaplain." So.
oh gosh.
My wife's like, "Oh,
He's gone.
he's out," you know. And she's like, "Your husband wants to talk to you," and she's like, "Really?" You know, and she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." I got in there, and I was on the phone. I was like, "Babe, they won't give me nothing to drink," you know. I was like, see if you can't come back here, you know. And man, like, all I wanted to do is see her, but like COVID, it was there, and gosh, dude, that sucked. I couldn't have nobody back.
they wouldn't let her in?
Nope.
They would let the chaplain in, but not your wife?
Yep. And what was messed up? Then he goes out there, and like, cause they wouldn't let nobody in the waiting room. They're all outside, and it's freezing.
They made them stand outside all night at the hospital. They wouldn't even let them in the
Inside
hospital because of
because of
COVID.
COVID.
That's when it
Jeez.
was like serious, crazy lockdown time, you know.
Jeez.
And so, like, that's another scary part. They're here you in the hospital, you know, like, man. But they finally let her in, you know. And I think I sent Cheeto a video of, like, the first time I got to be around her, you know. And she hadn't showed me that video. Like, I hadn't seen it. And since it's happened, you know. But she finally showed it to me before I came here, you know. She's like, look, this is pretty touching video. And man, it was messed up, like just seeing me like that, you know, like what the way thinking back on everything, like just man, like at that moment, like all I wanted to do was just have her present, you know. I mean, and the way I feel like the way I felt, everything was feeling so much better, and everything was like I wasn't worried about anything as long as she was right there. And so she stuck with me, you know. She stuck by me the whole time, and she took off of work for the remainder of the year, you know, and she was there right beside me. I'm so thankful I got her. And her and my mom swapped out they could have a different person there 24 hours. And so I went after surgery. I was in there, man, they had me on some drugs, dude. It was crazy. Like I had a pet cat for 2 weeks, and I was so mad. I started yelling at all the nurses because they changed rooms on me. I was like, you better bring that calico. You know, they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, you better bring my freaking cat.
Like just an imaginary cat you had?
Oh, dude, I had a cat, man. It was sitting there like I named it. I already named it. It was Calico, and it was sitting there on like these cabinets. And I was like, man. And what they were hospital boots. And dude, when she was rolling my bed out, I was like, you better bring Calico with me. And she's like, who's Calico? I was like, Calico, the one on the cabinet. No, I was just like, and like those drop down ceilings, they got those black little specks all over them, you know, like they were just racing, you know, the whole time, and I thought they were like ants, and I was like, y'all need to call it Exterminator, you know, this is crazy, you know, y'all got some major issues around this place, but yeah, they had me on all kinds of dope, and finally, I just like they started like getting me off of it, and then reality started sinking in once the drugs left, you know, like, all right, this is, because I still couldn't move anything from my neck down. And I turned around and started thinking about that. Like when they told my wife, they told her, they said he'll never leave a bed again. If he gets in a chair, you'll be pushing him, you know, but he'll never walk, he'll never do anything again. And that's pretty tough, man. Like I mean, they were trying to be honest and straightforward to her, you know. But man, like that's really tough, you know. Like for her to take all that in, you know. I couldn't imagine that. But so they ended up like I got accepted into like their little outpatient thing, Spain rehab out of the UAB. And they spinal cord. They work with spinal cord patients and head injury patients, and so I got to go over there. And the first few nights, man, was just terrible. I was screaming. I was going back to those. I wanted to die. You know, like man, it was just terrifying. Like just, you know, I hated it because I couldn't move. I was laying there in that bed, man, and just my arm, if it like fell off the bed, it was just hanging there, and it was turned to pain. You know, like I would, if it hung there long enough, I guess, because the blood or whatever would rush down to it. I just felt like I felt pain in my arm. That was kind of weird, but I couldn't move it, and so they started therapy, and they brought this chair in, and it had a tube hooked to it, and like this head thing, man, this thing's like had all kinds of contraptions on it, and you could drive it with your head, or that you could breathe through this tube called a sip and puff. And they're like, look, we're gonna get you in this chair, and this is what you're gonna use, you know. And I told them, I mean, this is just selfish, you know, because there's people out there that have to use them, and I mean, nothing against it, but in my mind, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not fixing to do it. I'm not gonna blow in a tube and drive a chair or anything like that, you know. And man, this is selfish. I told my wife, I said, you're gonna push me in a chair, you know. Like, sorry, you know, but like I just felt in my mind at that time that that was just like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, you know, I was better than that, if that makes any sense. But I mean,
Mhm.
like I didn't need it. Let's just say, like,
Mm.
I could beat this, you know. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And like I said, man, there's people out there right now, and I've been around a bunch of them, you know, and there's no wrong, you know. There's just it is what it is, you know. Like, you got to use what you have to use,
Mm.
and so I'm not saying anything bad about that, but it's she pushed me into therapy one day, and like my therapist is like, look, that's not right, you know. She said your wife's gonna be in a long, she's got a long road ahead of her, you know, and for you to do that, you know, that's wrong. And I was thinking, I was like, you know, like I was thinking to myself, I wasn't gonna tell her she was right, you know, but I was like, you know, that she's right, you know, I can't do that. So I go back, like when I go back to therapy, my mom, she's a retired OT, so she's in there, and so we're sitting there. Or I was laying in bed, and I'd work with my hand. Like, she would always just mess with me. Like, all right, Clark, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. So I'm laying there, and I'll never forget. I had the first twitch of my wrist. I thought it was like a spasm, you know, and so I was like, oh man. And then I was focused on it again. I was like, all right, you know, just I mean, it wasn't much movement at all. But then I got that one lift, you know. I was like, all right.
That kind of that first glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I was like, all right, we're not, you know, we're not done.
Still in the
Because
fight.
they label me like I was complete.
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to tell that part, but the whole chest grabbing thing. I was telling
Oh
you.
yeah,
Oh,
no, we need to tell
please,
this.
Please do that.
100%. No, we've got to hear this part. This is
Yeah.
this is probably my favorite part.
All right, so like they
And
thought
don't
I
hold
was
back.
they
Like,
thought I was complete because they have to do these tests and to see if you have feeling or like what, you know, if there's all different types of ways, man, that they do stuff. You know, I ain't gonna get into some of them, but the
Yeah, you
lady.
got to bring up the titty twister test.
So
though.
this lady gets up there and she's pretty hardcore, and I mean I was awake, you know, and but she had an assistant in there with a clipboard, and she's like doing all these tests, like poking my feet with needles and all that. So, can you feel that? I was like, no. Can you feel this? No. Well, then she like gets up there on them titties and grabs them. And I'm a hairy man, and like she grabs them nipples and just twists and pulls them straight up. And I mean, she's like, she, she she's pulling them hard, son.
She's getting after it.
Yeah, and she turned around and she looked at her assistant. She's like, no, no, you know. She said something else, and my wife gets up and she goes over there and like I think it was like the sink. They got a little sink or whatever. And like my wife, man, like she's oh that probably embarrassed her to death, but like she threw up, you know, in front of people and then in the sink. And of course that's when I was on a lot of drugs, you know, like I was thinking I didn't know what was going on, what that meant. So like they had me wrote up there like on the board, like I forgot what it was, but it's like complete, you know, like complete means like you'll never have feeling again, you know, like you're done. That's it. And I remember like then they come back a couple days later and they did some tests and I started having feeling, you know, like, and it was kind of like, all right, you know, like it's pretty. They moved it to like incomplete, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, all right, this is great, you know. That's when I had a little wrist movement and stuff like that. My mom just kept working with me, but they brought a chair in there like this, and it had like this the same mechanism like that. They had that, and it was on this side. And I'll never forget. They're like, "Look, we'll let you try it and see if you can do it." Well, I couldn't move my arm, and they got me in the chair and everything, and I worked my wrist. I just did like that, and I got my hand up in that saddle right there, and that I didn't need no help driving it. I mean, they make you do a driving test.
Gotta get your driver's license.
Parallel
No
Parking
joke. They
the
set
thing.
some cones up and like make
No,
you
they did not.
swear to you. I'm not lying. I mean, go get you a spinal cord and go try it out. I mean, like I'm telling you, they set you up row cones and like you have to. They're not row cones. They're little small ones, and they see if you can turn around, back up. And I'm like, look, my grandmother had a little rascal,
Yeah.
and so as a kid, man, I'd get on that thing and just zip around
whip
the house, And so I had some little experience driving these things, and man, it was wild. But I was able to drive, and I don't have to use those other, adaptions. And man, so I was staying there, and I was going to therapy and whatnot, and they put me on this machine later on, and it was like you're laying flat on a table, and it like lifts you up, and they hooked all these stem units, like powerful ones, like up to my legs, see if I had any reaction, and like it was like a squat. The table like they put, it's pretty much a squatting bench, like you just they see if you can bring down your legs and then push back up, but then they have it timed like where when you're going up, like the stem unit like would fire off, and then that make you straighten your legs, and they would turn the stem unit down, like see how much you needed, and I was able to do it, and I was like, man, like my freaking legs were working a little bit, but I had a lot of juice going to them, and all it was pretty much electrocuting them, in a way, making them go straight. But they took me in, and they set me the first time ever. I got out of a chair and set upright on something, and I fell over. I mean, like my wife was there. That's another time she about ran off the rope. Like when they set me up on this mat, like they're like, okay, and let's see if he has any core strength. And man, I just, which they caught me, but like my wife said, it looked like a newborn baby, and I was like, man, this ain't good, because it needs some core strength. But I stayed there, and they were going to discharge me like 2 weeks before Christmas, and I was trying my best. I heard of this place in Atlanta, Shepherd Center, and man, like they were supposed to be like the best spinal cord, head injury, place around, and so I was like, I try my best to get in, like kept sending my wife and my mother was trying like sending applications in and all that, talking to people, and I forgot who I was telling, but they told me like you're not supposed, like once you start like rehab or whatever, like they don't take people. They take people straight out of the hospital, Shepherd would, but like me being like already started in a rehab, it's kind of like uncommon, like for them to take people like that. And this lady called my mother, and she said, can you be here tomorrow? Or I think it was. And my mother's like, yeah, we can do whatever, You had to get an ambulance. You had to ride an ambulance over there.
And that was the day before Thanksgiving, right?
I got there the day before Thanksgiving, and they had this strict policy, like you could only have one caregiver, and you could not leave the facility,
Is it COVID thing still?
COVID thing.
Yeah.
You could not leave. You could not like if my mother left, like to do like anything, she could not come back in, and I could not have another caregiver. And let me say something, my mother, she's one of a kind, and man, like she's stepped it up. Like, well, she ain't stepped up. She's always been like this. But me and my mother, like, have never spent this much time together since I was probably in elementary school. But when you're in a hospital room and like, they did lockdowns, because maybe like if somebody had COVID in there, found out, tested out positive at Shepherd that they had COVID, that they would lock everybody in their rooms. No joke. Like we were in there, I think, for 72 hours one time.
Gosh.
72 hours in a hospital room, and you're paralyzed, and your mom's over there wanting to like play, bingo or something with you. You're like, man, just leave me alone. Like let's just we need some time apart. So the only place you could go is like the bathroom. Like just have some some space from one another. It was miserable, but man, I'm so thankful that she was there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I got there the day before Thanksgiving, and the first week I was there, they had me standing up. And man, like that facility is like, man, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't gone there. I mean, this place is like just, they offer so many things, and they have like so many resources and stuff like that. And here in Atlanta, like they're everybody like works with them, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so they take all these great outings and stuff like that. I mean, the first time I ever left the hospital, I was like, my therapist took me out. It's just so like nerve wracking, like to be out in the world, like this in a wheelchair and all that. I was just worried about people looking and all this stuff. And like those therapists there, they like just, I don't know, they make you feel like, and they teach you like how to how to survive, or not survive, but like how to just adapt, and like how to do things like out in the real world, not just like, hey, we're gonna sit here and lift up some cups, like they take you to the store, and like they're like, we'll buy you, like they took us to the fresh market, and they're like, all right, everybody's got like $50, I was like, I ain't got a wallet, they're like, no, everybody in here, we all give you $50. Get whatever you want. I was like, well, all right. Well, my hands don't work good, but but I'll try. And it took me like, our therapy sessions were like an hour and a half. And it took me like 30 minutes to get the little freezer door open, like, and there's like a line behind me. I was like, hey, bud, my therapist was like, no, he's got to do it, I was like, well, we'll let these people go ahead of me.
Hey, bud, I'll give you $20.
And I was like,
Open
this
door
lady
for
claims
me.
that I got $50, but all but like they force you, they make you work, and like that's another God thing. Like I should have not got into that place, and for me to be able to like go there and like I spent the day before Thanksgiving all the way to like the end of May, the 24th. Never left. Never saw my wife and kids. Bought a house on FaceTime. Because you had to buy something that's like wheelchair that, and we went from like where we're going to buy some property and build a house, that's what we were talking about doing, to doing something that I always told my wife I wasn't going to do, and that's live in a subdivision, and we moved in the subdivision, and ended up living, street over from my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and that's worked out tremendously, so shout out to them. They help out all the time.
Subdivision ain't so bad sometimes.
No.
I mean, the neighbors are iffy at times, but there's deer running around.
Man, and they are. Like Brandon tell you, behind our house, it's just like ton of woods, and they got all kinds of stuff. But like Now, I wish I could be down there walking around scouting, you know, but
Sure.
hey, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Do you have I mean, go ahead and tell the story real quick at the rehab when you were at the aquarium. Cause
Oh yeah, they
that
take
was
you out.
hilarious.
They take you out. Like I said, a bunch of outings. Oh, I didn't tell you that they took us. The outdoor therapist there, man, Gavin, that dude, he is awesome. Like this man is like, he does everything like to try to get people out in the outdoors. And he kept coming in like my room, and he's like, "Hey, look, man, you have got to come back down here. Like you got to get back in it. You know, that's where I got my track chair from." And they have a track chair there, and he's like, "Look, come check this thing out." He drove it up to my room in the hospital. He's like bebopping through the hospital on a track chair, and he's like, "Look, man, you want to ride in this thing?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." So he take me outside, like, man, just had a bunch of rocks and stuff. He's like, "See what this thing can do?" Blah blah blah. So I was riding around, you know, and I was like, "That's pretty cool." He's like, "You want to shoot?" And I was like, "No." I said, "If I can't feel the pull of that trigger with my finger, I don't want nothing about it. You know, I don't care." And like 2 weeks more, he kept on. He's like, "Man, you need to shoot." And so he set that track chair up, and man, I'll never forget. Like I finally agreed to it. And like the first one, you know, it was awkward. You know, the way I was trying to get situated, and the first shot wasn't where I wanted to hit, and the second shot, man, it was like dead on. I was like, all right, you know. He's like, try to do it again. And that whole therapy session, I sat down there and I shot, you know. And so that right there kind of was like, all right. But like I was thinking to myself, like after the fact, like, man, I got to have all these people to set me up, you know, got to have this, got to have that. But I knew I could do it, you know. So they take you on all these outings. Gavin's throwing all these outings together. And he took me skeet shooting. Took me skeet shooting, dude. And I mean, like, I was like, are y'all done lost y'all's mind? You know, like, they got some quads there that, you know, quads, all four limbs are affected. People don't know that. But, like, I was sitting there, I mean, they got a freaking Benelli, you know, and I'm like, dude, what am I supposed to do with this thing? You know, like, I can't hold it. I ain't got the strength to. Well, they got this thing that it's like a PVC that Gavin and another therapist made like on their own, and that Benelli hooks up in the middle, so it's like swinging there between two like rubber band, like heavy rubber bands, and they put that trigger mechanism on there, you know, and get on. And I was like, man, all right. And the first shot, I hit the first skeet, and I was like, dang, all right. Okay, well that was the first and only skeet I hit out of a box and a half. And you know, like where the doghouse is, where the thrower is, like the skeet thrower is. I've always wondered. I was like, what idiot shoots that box? It's like right there. Well, I'm that idiot. I shot that thing on accident, like I was trying to get ready, and I tapped that trigger thing that. It just blasted, and I was like, dang, man, like, this sucks. Like, this is embarrassing. But, yeah, like, that was a good one. Like, he puts you out there, you know, like, he gets you out of your comfort zone in a way, like, just lets you know, like, what you can accomplish. And he's a good dude. And, but the other therapists, they took us to, the Georgia Aquarium. It was like supposed to be secretive, and they're like, "Hey, look." They come up to me, and I thought like, you know, I was like, "Hey, look, you can't say nothing, but would you be interested in going to swim with the whale sharks?" I was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, I ain't much of a swimmer nowadays, you know." But and I did pool therapy there, you know, and so the therapist was like, "Yeah, you got to keep it hush hush. You can't say nothing to nobody, you know." I was like, "Well, who else is going?" You know, she's like, "You'll see, you know, the day that you go." I was like, "Oh my gosh, all right, this is like really secretive." She's like, "Do you know how to use a snorkel?" You know, I was like, well, I'm not going to say I'm a professional snorkeler, but like, yeah, I can, like, so the pool is like 90 something degrees, it's just like very like relaxing bathtub water. And so she put a snorkel on me and everything, and I don't have like a life jacket or anything like that on. And she like makes you like, well, I wasn't swimming around, I was like flapping around, but like see if I could breathe, through underwater. Everything was fine. They teach you like how to like roll over, like if you're on your back, roll back over. And man, it was crazy. Like I did that, and I was like, all right, man, I'm good. And so we get on the bus that morning. I see who I was going. I was like, all right, well, let's go swim with some sharks. And it's wild, dude. They take you in there, and I mean, you see those whale sharks like on top of the water. Dude, them things were 30 foot long. And I mean, like, they had this dude in a little dinghy with a rope, and he was like pulling himself across there, and he was throwing out their feed. And these whale sharks are following this little dinghy, like, and he's feeding them. I'm not kidding with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all right. And they're getting them hungry, and then like throw us in there, which I know they ain't gonna eat. And they're like telling us like, oh, they go through this whole spiel about telling you what you can and cannot do and everything. And like they're telling you like, now if what they got? They got those like
Manta rays.
Manta rays, huge.
They're massive.
And they're like, look, you don't touch those, or don't touch the whale sharks, or just don't touch anything. I was like, you don't have to worry about me, And so they put us in these wetsuits, man, and I'm like, good gosh, like that was a task in itself. And they roll us in these wheelchairs down this portable dock, and they get us out of the wheelchair and they set us on the side of the pier, and our feet are in the water, and they put your snorkel on, and they're like, get in. And I'm like, what? Like, y'all ain't go. I thought, at hospitals, they got those little chair lifts that you in the water and stuff.
Yeah.
No, they don't have that. They like, just get in. So I just like plopped over in the water. Man, when my body hit that water was 60 something degrees.
Oh, jeez.
And as y'all probably saw yesterday, like that coldness, like, man, it just gets my body tight and like draws up. Dude, like my hands just shot up under me like this. And I could not move. My legs wouldn't kick or nothing. And I got water in my pipe. And they're like, oh, and they put this life jacket around it. It goes like around your stomach, like a little donut. And we didn't practice with those donuts, and it makes it very difficult to roll over with that donut. And so I had this water in my pipe, and like the back of the spinal cord, you don't breathe the same way. So I can't clear that pipe out. I could tell where that water was like right at the top, And I was just like, I'd wait a little bit. I was like, 1, 2, 3, and I just come up and then shoot right back down. And I couldn't breathe. And so I'm like, oh man, there again, I'm thinking of others. I was like, man, I'm fixing to ruin this trip for everybody. Like when I'm gonna black out,
So there's not someone in the water like
So
waiting for you to hop in?
Okay, they're swimming around,
Yeah.
but they weren't under the water. They thought like I was gonna like lift my head or do something. But I was stationary,
Face
just looking
down.
at the water.
It's like you
And
had this
I could
amazing-
hear them talking, like they're just like talking and all that. And this like little mermaid girl, like she like swam underneath me, and she spun around on her back, and she like looking face to face, and she gave me the 2 thumbs up, and I was like, no, and she's like shot up, she's like, roll him over. I was like, I finally could breathe. Well, they got current pulling through that tank. I mean, like some good current. And like I said, I'm just like, and they get you in that current, son. They're just like, go for it, And I'm just like big blob, like just drifting around. They don't know which one's whale shark, like. And the daggum 30-foot whale shark would come up. I mean, like get right there, like he's swimming, he's gonna hit you. I mean, but I was so like drawn up, and like tight, I couldn't see it till it was like right directly in front of me because I couldn't turn my head. But it was wild, man. Like just, I mean, like they did stuff like that, and I mean, there's not many places like
That's pretty cool.
that take you and do things like
Funny,
that.
you had this like amazing survival story of falling out of a tree just to have it go all in at drowning at SeaWorld.
Yeah,
Just watching
that's
some
what,
whale
that's what
sharks
I was
swim
telling
around.
my wife. I was like, yeah, that'd be my luck. You know, I'd make the news like quadriplegic drowns in the whale shark tank. You know, but yeah, I'm thankful like for the whole experience, and man, it's just I'm thankful for being here. You know, like just life means a lot more now than it ever has, and because if people look at if people take a break and just chill for a minute and just sit back and think, like there's a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Even though you might not think your day's going, you know, really bad, or your week or your year or whatever, look, man, there's so much for anybody to be thankful for. I mean, you can find something if you sit back and think really hard. If you just take time, you know, that's all it is, just take time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I mean, like my whole life was just go, 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 go. And so.
Well, it's we just live in such a busy world these days with social media and phones and just
Oh, yeah.
distractions all over the place. It you know, that's something I told you in the blind. We talked about that yesterday. That something I struggle with and something I'm trying to be better at is to slow down and take time for family and put the phone away and just, you know, sort of be in the moment more often. And you know, there's a lot of takeaways from your story and you coming here, and I'm super grateful that you did come, and that you know that your 9-year-old son did some little convincing there for us.
Shoot, he's fired up, man.
So shout out to him. What's his name?
Hayes.
Hayes. Shout out to Hayes on that one. And you know, this has been an amazing experience for all of us. I do have a kind of a closing question for you. What does your wristband say? I can see part of it, but I can't see all of it.
My little girl, she came up with this. And so my wife, this saying, she told me this when I was in the hospital. If you think you can't, I know you can. And I thought that was pretty, you know, intense for, well, now she's 11. Her name's Hadley. And I thought that was pretty good for, you know, a 9-year-old at the time to come up with, you know. And so my wife did too, and she made some wristbands.
Yeah.
And I always kind of think about it, you know, like the times I have thought about giving up and how life sucks, you know, and everything like that. I mean, I think of that, like of her saying, you know, I know you can, you know, because like I said, I was the daddy that did everything, you know, helped them out and all that. And so I don't want to let them down and think like, oh, well, daddy just gave up, you know. I don't want to be that guy, you know. Because if I did give up, what's that teaching them, you know? You know, it's teaching them that it's okay to give up.
Yeah.
And it's not, man. You got to just keep on keeping on, you know. I mean,
Man, you just dropped one of my favorite movie quotes of all time.
Yeah, I know.
Life's a garden,
From
dig
Joe
it.
Dirt. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden. Dig it.
yeah.
One thing that touched me last night, talking about his kids so much, you know, and y'all probably noticed a lot of his stories are around his kids, but he called Hayes on speakerphone last night when we were driving back to the hotel, you know, and he
Yeah.
was telling him about the hunt and, you know, that he made a good shot. And, you know, Hayes just paused for a second and he said, man, I'm so proud of you. You know, like when he said that to Clark, you know, I like teared up because it was so like
Tearjerker.
sincere that like, man, I am so proud of you for doing that, you know. And it was like an awesome moment that made everything worth it. That like it touched his son. That like, man, I'm so proud of my dad for going and doing it. You know,
Yeah.
it was an awesome moment.
Well, something that Clark and I were talking about earlier today was just like feeling so limited in what you can do with your kids and your family now physically. Like you can't go on the trips and do all these things that you once could, but there's still just as much or more opportunity to be a leader in your family. Because it doesn't have to be, you don't have to physically lead your family. You can lead them emotionally and spiritually. And it's super encouraging to me, just kind of your outlook and your perspective on the whole thing. The fact that you're not giving up and it's not even like an impediment to you. And you're taking advantage of the time that you have to spend with God and focus on kind of those leadership qualities that are honestly more important than the physical things.
Yeah.
So it's I know I would and I struggle with it now. Couldn't even imagine the struggle that you go through on a daily basis, but just like the daily battle of, you know, asking God, like, why did this have to happen to bring me back to you? And I think about that a lot. Like, I struggle with my faith every day, and I pray, like, God, just, you know, help bring me back in, help just kind of bring me back into a relationship with you. And sometimes I find myself praying, like, but don't do something so drastic to where it's like I have to go through this hard time to get me back to that point. But I feel like so often, like, that's what it takes for people to finally like surrender and have that moment that you had where you're crying out to God and just like giving him everything.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, God gave me so many other sons.
Yeah.
And Brandon will tell you, like, from a young age, you know, I mean, like, there's stuff that I shouldn't have lived through, like, before, from car wrecks and stuff. I mean, he's hit me with a lot of eye openers, and that's what I've always said. I think, like, he's been beaten at the door.
Mm-hmm.
He's gave me multiple, you know, as of most people have been like, hey, look, you know, I should be thankful, you know, like, no, like, I just, man, all right, that sucks, you know, like, all right, let's move on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, he had to, like, that's what he had to do to get my attention.
Yeah.
Something really like, hey, look, you need to wake up, you know, and this is what you need, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, I really think that, you know, I mean, in all honesty, like,
Yeah.
and I've told people that before, like, after my accident, that he's been knocking at my door for a minute, you know. I just hadn't chose to open it.
Well, there's so much good that has come from such a horrible thing. And I think if you remove God and faith from that equation, it's just an accident, it's just a tragedy, and that's all there is to it. But
Right.
when you inject God into it, in my opinion, he's the only person, not person. When you inject God into a horrible situation, he's the only thing that can make good come out of that. Such a horrible thing. Like, he brings goodness out of it. And, you know, it's brought you to your faith. It's brought you closer to your family. Like, I know your whole mentality has changed entirely from that incident. And it's just like something that was meant to be, or just as it is, it's just a tragedy and horrible. And what good could possibly come from it? But when you inject God into it, a lot of joy, a lot of good comes from it. And I think that, you know, you telling your story on this platform will really spotlight that. So I'm really thankful that both of y'all took the time to, you know, honestly take a leap of faith and come hang out with a bunch of yahoos in Atlanta.
And that's, like I've told you a bunch, like, it's wild, man. Like, when I spent that much time in Atlanta, you know, that's what I did. Like, I'd watch YouTube. I had it hooked up where I could use my phone. It was hooked to my TV. in my room, and so I'd always watch, the Hunt Public, and I did that before, like me and Brandon, we'd watch them like we'd always talk. Brandon always about, did you see that sequel or did you see that Hunt Public? That episode last night, like the freshest one. I'd be like, nah, I have to check it out. Like, so on lunch break, I go check it out, in my office, like on the computer. And so when I got back, when I was in Atlanta, that's all I did, it's like watch all those episodes, and I started telling them, I was like, man, like, I want to go where the boys were running around Atlanta, smoking them freaking giants. Like, I was like, and people around there are like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, y'all hadn't seen that? I mean, like,
Well, you did it.
I was like, y'all have not seen them two guys run around. I mean, they're shooting these daggum giants out of people's backyards. I mean, like, they're everywhere apparently. And man, it was just it's mind blowing that I got this opportunity for real, and I can't thank you enough. I mean, like I said, I didn't have to kill.
Yeah.
Just it
Well,
was a lot more than killing that deer. That deer was just an extra bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. That's all there is to it.
I'll say, Clark, I mean, you've totally blessed me and changed my life just by your story, man, and just by, we talk about the other people it could affect, but, man, just me, like, personally, like, I've never been the person, I'm not really good with my hands and, like, working on stuff, and like, I'd rather call somebody and have them do it, but, like, your perspective and kind of the story from your dad and you, and it just kind of puts in my head like, I need to take more time to, do things with my family and teach my son things and spend more time with my family and really prioritize my life. And you have brought that to my attention greatly. And I mean, I couldn't thank you enough. I just want you to know how much you have blessed us just by being here and telling your story and just opening up to us like that. It means the world to me that you would do this.
Thank you. And another note to help you go through like hard times or like just as our family, we use a lot of like we mess around with one another. We joke and all that. Like we're straightforward. Like like my little boy, he'll come by and be like, "Hey, give me a high five, huh?" Keep walking. Like just. I'm like, "Oh man, that was dirty." Like, and but like, I think like, man, laughter, dude. Like that's if you can learn how to laugh with things. Like I think. Cheeto on the way down here, he's like, he didn't know how to take some of the stuff when we were talking on the phone. And he's like,
right.
man, I was saying stuff, and like Brandon would chime in. He's like, man, y'all are just like ruthless, like, here comes that handyman, like just, but like, dude, like, it don't have to be just about my situation, but just, if you gotta learn how to laugh, man, love life, like just because you ain't gonna do it once, and I mean, like, just live life to the fullest. Do anything you can, and just enjoy it. And so,
Yeah, people need to laugh more often.
Yeah.
not be so tense, man. I used to be just, I was hard, just work, and hunt and put family on the side, like that was it. And so now it's all family, and which I'm thankful for. So,
Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. But again, thank you guys for taking the time.
man, thank you. Thank
think
y'all
we'll,
all. Y'all don't know how much this means to me, this whole experience.
We're the ones that have been blessed out of it for sure. So
Shoot, I don't know about that.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up with a good old quote from Clark Mason and our good old buddy Joe Dirt. Keep on keeping on.
That's right.
Life's a garden. Dig it. See you guys.